Hey guys, it's Lord of the Pogs. The concept of time travel was first explored by H.G. Wells in his 1895 novella The Time Machine and has continued in popular culture all the way through Stephen King's 2013 novel 11/22/63. I have discussed time travel in my videos. What if Back to the Future really happened? The best time travel movies you've never heard of, and fact or fiction, real claims of time travel. But what if you could travel through time as easily as just traveling? Today, I want to talk about how time travel would affect the world as we experience it. Our lives wouldn't change very much if we could only send time travelers on one-way trips to the past or to the future. Assuming a time traveler to the past could make changes that affected the future, it's unlikely that we could watch the present change in real time. If it did, our memories would change with it and we wouldn't notice. If a photograph existed that had the time traveler in it, but it didn't previously, our memory of that photograph would change so that we would remember the photograph as always having had the time traveler in it, like some kind of reverse Mandela effect. Or, instead of time traveling to the past the way we think of it on a linear timeline, a time traveler might travel to a different timeline altogether, where the future isn't determined yet, and there would be no change to the present at all, even if the time traveler made changes that would affect the future. Whatever scenario presented itself would be indistinguishable from the other from the point of view of the observer in the present. This brings up the concept of self-consistent narratives, which states that anything a time traveler would alter in the past would have to remain consistent with the future from whence they came. Changing the past would change the future, creating a causal loop where an effect is its own cause. For example, if you traveled to 17th century England and gave a young William Shakespeare a copy of the complete works of Shakespeare, that would create a causal loop because the works of Shakespeare now have no origin. If William Shakespeare copied all his works from the complete works of Shakespeare, where did the original book come from? However, the question of how time travel would affect life as we know it goes a lot deeper than theoretical paradoxes and potential time loops. Unrestricted time travel would inevitably lead to total chaos. British physicist Paul Davies explains it like this. Time travel opens a view of the world that is a sort of madhouse where the rational order of things would no longer work. Under those circumstances, it's very hard to see how ordinary human life could continue. In a world where the relationship between past, present, and future became so convoluted, so would our relationships with the thing that define our everyday lives that we so often take for granted. Time would no longer work the way we're used to, which would be fundamentally damaging to our worldview because we'd have a newfound preoccupation with simply making sense of a world without chronology. We wouldn't know the order in which things occur. Past, present, and future wouldn't necessarily happen in that order. They would all happen at the same time. In some cases, the future would happen before the past, or the present would happen after the future. The past might be the future, or the present might be the past. These terms would become essentially meaningless. Unrestricted time travel would change our lives so dramatically it would be unrecognizable. It would be so unrecognizable, it would feel like you're living in a dream where nothing seems real and nothing makes any sense at all. You wouldn't be able to tell if something happened before or after, if it was a cause or an effect. Past, present, and future verb forms would become interchangeable, and you would lose the ability to rationally predict the outcomes of your actions. Imagine if someone died in a hit-and-run accident and you traveled back in time to save them. On your way to the accident, you're the one who runs them over. In this scenario, there could have been either one or two versions of you simultaneously. If you saw the hit-and-run incident occur, then you were watching the other version of yourself, which means that when you went back in time and became the other you, you were being watched by the first you. If the second you was you from the future but in the past, that would explain why you didn't remember doing the hit and run, because it was the future version of you. In this case, the past, present, and future are all occurring simultaneously. You can be in the present, watching the future happen in the past. It opens up the possibility for the second version of you to become the third version of you and travel to the future of the past to stop yourself from trying to prevent the hit and run. If the third version of you succeeds, then the second and third versions of you would essentially cease to exist. So who did the original you interact with? If you didn't witness the hit and run but just heard about it, then there's plausibly only one version of you. But if you went back in time and did the hit and run, then the future, which you haven't experienced yet, and the past, which has already happened, are interacting with each other in the present. Moreover, it begs the question, what happened to the future version of you but in the past after the hit and run? If you ended up back in the present, having heard about the hit and run, why didn't you remember it? In both these instances, whether there were 3 versions of you or only one, you would feel like you were gaslighting yourself into insanity, and onlookers would watch you having the most bizarre case of trauma-induced amnesia on record. Moreover, it opens a can of worms for the Justice Department. If you were arrested for the hit and run, then depending on which version of you was arrested, you could plausibly make the case that you haven't committed the crime yet. If you were released, can a different version of you be charged with the same crime because it's the same person? Or does that count as double jeopardy? You go back in time to the year you were born and have an affair resulting in a pregnancy, and you become your own parent. Futurama explored this in the episode Roswell That Ends Well, where Fry became his own grandparent. You share 50% of your father's DNA and 50% of your mother's. So when you hook up with your opposite gendered parent, you will both collectively contribute 25% of your same gendered parent's DNA and 75% of your opposite gendered parent's DNA. When the baby is born, being you will now share only 25% of your same gendered parent's DNA and 75% of your opposite gendered parent's DNA. Now, when you go back in time to have your affair, the child, again being you, will only share 12.5% of your same gendered parent's DNA and 87.5% of your opposite gendered parent's DNA. Eventually, you would become essentially a clone, a perfect copy of your opposite gendered parent. People notice when kids look like their parents. Imagine if you and your opposite gendered parent looked like identical twins, but 30 years apart, and a blood test confirmed that you and your parent were identical twins. That in itself would be fantastically weird. In a world where time travel was as easy as getting into a car, these scenarios would become everyday occurrences. It would be total mayhem. These things are fun to think about, but the adverse effects of readily available time travel would challenge the very notion of existence as we know it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe, and hit that little bell in the corner to get notifications on more videos like this one.